hope I'm live on YouTube. I need to go check.
Yeah, I think so.
You see it? Okay, good. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Sudha Jamte, and we are here for our weekly Wednesday live Q&A. And we stuck to Wednesday, so I'm just going to call it weekly Wednesday live. This is our time. Thank you, America, West Coast, joining me at morning, and East Coast, your lunchtime, and Europe for joining me in the evening. And in fact, we have a guest joining us from Italy. So I hope this is worth your time. We're going to continue our discussion about AIX design. And we'll go deeper into it because we have a design expert with us. And this is what we started out last week. In this talk, in this session, usually I bring up a topic and I give some information about the topic, and then I answer questions. And periodically, I'm lucky to have an expert. And since we've been talking about design, AIX design is specifically about UX design. That's why it's X design, but in the world of AI. And we've been talking about digital mobility in here. So we've been talking about mobility jobs and who will train the AI and how will product management change and all kinds of things in this last few weeks. Prior to that, we've talked about what is AI in the car, what is data in the car, what is autonomous vehicle business. So you can go to Driverless World School to live streamed lessons, and you can see all our past sessions and you can look at it. And if you're joining me straight on YouTube, the live goes live on YouTube just when I'm live. The rest of the time, you'll just see the archive. So come back to YouTube or tell your friends to just subscribe to the YouTube. So one piece of logistics. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see the window where you can ask questions. Ask me questions. No question is a bad question. If it goes with the flow, we'll jump in and answer. Hopefully, Charles will be able to share his experience and tell us a lot more of what he's working on or what he's seeing out in the field, what he sees as in a futuristic way too. And last week I missed with some bug. I did not see the question, so I kept asking why are there no questions. And sorry for anybody who got frustrated, but thank you for coming back. Please ask your questions and we'll be sure to answer them. And let's have fun. So with that, I am going to get started and introduce our guest today. Let me put it in a different view so you can see both of us. Okay, perfect. So welcome, Charles.
Thank you very much, Sudha. Thank you.
So Dr. Charles Icahn, he's a service design expert, and he has a PhD in IoT. My first love, since I teach IoT business at Stanford, and that's how I got into autonomous vehicle, and that's what I teach, autonomous vehicle business at Stanford, continuing studies. And he's also worked with cars. I don't know how much he can talk about those things because he works for different clients and he's very tight-lipped about those things, but you can see his experience come out. So he's going to be joining us talking about how design jobs are changing. That is our broader topic today. AIX design, I believe, is one aspect of it, but Charles might tell you something different. So let's get started. And one of the things I'd done many years back was just raise the question to a group of leaders here in Palo Alto, to a group of UX leaders. I raised this question about how does design change? How does engagement change when you are working with an AI? So if in a normal software engineering setting, when you're working with designers, and I've had the privilege of working with amazing designers at eBay, we have a certain way when we think of the customer, different personas who are going to be using our system, and then design what the experience is going to be. And in a commerce setting, what we did was we would have recommendation engines that would show different recommendation personalized for the user. And even then, we were very driven by data. So I want to ask you, what is your definition of AIX, or how do you see design changing? Let's just set the stage, take some questions, and then we'll continue and have a discussion.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I think that we're having a stream of AI-powered enabled products from time to time, and this is becoming mainstream. You know, like from everything we do, from the social media sites to autonomous vehicle, yeah, basically everything. So, but the point that we don't know that yet. So when it works, like someone said, we don't call it AI. We feel it's something that is still very much experimental. So when you have those products, those AI-powered products, they will need an interface, right? So, so the interface can be visual, can be voice in terms of the voice assistant, the Google Home and the Amazon Alexa. It could be on the smartphone, it could be tactile, it could be haptic interface. So the point is that we need designers that will be able to, we need designers. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, everybody can hear. I just muted when you were talking. So okay. I was just saying when you said haptic, I was just adding that we are talking about a virtual reality experience because a lot of OEMs are creating that experience. And I've always been talking about AR in the car. So wanted to jump in. So when you have these experiences, what happens with the AR?
When you have these experiences, you need designers that will be able to translate the stream of data, working alongside the AI engineers to translate that stream of data into these experiences of how people will actually interact with them. So that is where AIX comes in, which is AI interaction design. So it doesn't matter, you could be a product designer, an interaction designer, or a service designer, but you need to be able to understand how these things, how this data will flow into an experience. So it requires a little bit of detail. So in the most basic sense, I think that AIX design is the design of algorithms that determine the behavior of intelligent systems. So if you look at how it affects the design, jobs, design tasks are mostly utilitarian. These days we are having things like design systems that enable us to be able to replicate thousands and dozens of screens within time. So you find out that having things like design systems that are powered with AI helps to be able to cut down the time that we waste trying to create those streams of work. So so to be able to explain AIX design is to be able to have it to, one way is to how it affects jobs, and the other way is how it affects the product experience. So
let's pick one at a time. Just for people who are not working closely with the designers, just tell me when you say design system, what do you mean by design system that we use these days?
Okay. If I want to create something like a logo, right? So I create a logo for my business card, but I want that same logo to be on my website. I want that same logo to be on my app. I want it to be on my letterhead. I want it to be on my T-shirt, right? So it has to be very unique. When we started designing, we have to create individually and take measurements of this logo across these particular packages that we have. So these days you have a design system where it helps you, the system already helps you to be able to scale this design. So you only have to create a logo and then scale it across multiple products. So it becomes very, very easy. So AI can be able to...
So when we do responsive design and we have the same look that is on mobile and on the desktop, is that coming from design systems or is it different medium?
Yeah, it's coming from design systems. It's coming from different, even across mediums. You already have those dimensions already built into the system. So you don't have to recreate it. You don't need to know the dimension of the Facebook banner because the design system already specifies that. But the point is that you have to set the parameters and then leave it like that. So if you don't feed data into the design system, it wouldn't bring that. So it works on a small scale. It is an AI-enabled system as well. So you have to feed the parameters that you want and then allow it to scale across. So you can use it for your Facebook banner, Twitter banner, Instagram images, and all those things. So you already set the dimensions, and then it goes across board. So that is what I mean by design system.
Okay.
So any questions at all?
No, good.
Okay. So
you mentioned something called computational design. That's what, when we started talking about this topic, you said, hey, you know, what you're talking about with engagement looks like what MIT calls as computational design. And last week, I was talking about computational design from my experience, saying working with data and using data to inform design decisions. And I was questioning how, when the entire interaction with the customer is going to be an AI, how can we have computational design? I understand that the AI talks only data, so you need to talk data back to it. But how do you do the creative part of designing the experience? And last week I was showing Tim Gray's design. He had a ad design like a you know, flowing in. I'll bring that up in a little bit to kind of share what I was talking about. It was a beautiful design. It had so much texture in it, and
yeah,
you feel like you're standing in the beach, or you want to go touch it. You know, when somebody designs a creative experience like that, then how do you fit that into the world of AI to create that engagement? So I was questioning, you know, is computational design something that works for certain kind of environments, which, I mean, eventually everything will have an AI component and there will be more AI in technology. So,
yes.
but how do you differentiate? Is there two kind of designing process by which the designers will work with the product team in creating the design experience?
Yeah.
That was my question. So maybe we can start with what is computational design from your perspective, and then we will take it from there.
Yes, I think that computational design and AI design and many other companies, I think Wix, the website design company, they called it advanced design intelligence. There are many other terms to describe what they are doing, but they are basically just the same thing.
Cool. Advanced design intelligence.
Yes, it's just basically like using data to be able to scale design. Like I was listening to Airbnb a few weeks back, and to see how they do design. So how they do it is, if you are working with designers and AI engineers in house, so we start to bring up a scenario, and we create a persona based on this persona.
Yes.
So persona, we create an end-to-end experience. So how do you discover a product? How do you check in? How do you onboard? How do you pay? And how do you check out? And how do we interact with the world after that? So when we create this end-to-end experience, now the major problem for designers is now how do you scale this design to be able to reach thousands and millions of people across the world? So that is where AI comes in, where you have dynamic personalization. So you have those recommendation engines for scale. So dynamic that personalization. For example, I'll give you a little example is the Spotify dynamic weekly track list. So it presents you a weekly track list in a user experience, in a user interface that is customized to you. So the track art, the artwork on it, and the track list is specific to you. So every week, it comes with another track art, a cover art that is specific. So it now is the same for everybody. And that is not just to say that it's just design. What is being able to compose that user interface that you are seeing is actually algorithms that are working to be able to place it. So based on the permissions that you gave the app, it can be able to collect whatever you liked during the week and be able to compute a user interface that will be just matching you and in terms of the kind of music you want at that particular point in time.
So we did this in eBay. In fact, I had a colleague called Andy Edmonds, who's now with Facebook, and this is an area of passion for him. And I used to head mobile analytics, and he was from the product side, and he was pushing us to build a design team that would use data. And so we had a lot of interesting pet projects where he would want data to actually go play with it to inform design decisions. right? And when we go work with the design team. But I believe the way we actually interacted or worked with the design team was building personas, understanding the user, figuring out what the flow would be, and then creating the engagement. And then being a commerce engine, we had a recommendation engine, which was driven by an algorithm. So we would get a recommendation engine done, driven by some kind of data science model that would be personalized based on the user, a lot of the other data and permissions we have from the user. So I can understand when I'm using Netflix or Spotify and they give me a recommendation, or an e-commerce engine gives a recommendation. If that is computational design, it makes total sense, because that is humanly impossible to understand all the different variables that inform the preference of that user to personalize that experience. And I believe we're kind of almost there, right, in these scenarios. When we go into the AI purely being the only decision maker of the interaction.
Yes.
So like when I'm talking to Alexa, I was giving this example. I'm talking to Alexa and Alexa is learning, and I ask something, Alexa assumes what I'm asking for, and she's going to talk now. So, and she goes and gets me whatever information, right? And if that's not what I asked for, there is a constant learning, because that data is being collected by Amazon to go improve their learning algorithm. And the assumption is when they put out an inference model out on the edge, be it Alexa, be it in the car, be it an AR, VR, haptic system, they are assuming that, hey, we have to keep learning, because they know they don't have 100% accuracy in their algorithm from the training data. So they have, when my interaction becomes new training data for the next rev of the inference model. So that means they're collecting the data, assuming, hey, did we do right or did we do wrong? Let's go feed this data, train the model to get better, to interact with this user. Maybe this user has, new, like me, when I'm talking to Alexa, I might be sleepy, I might be drinking my coffee and talking, and or I might be screaming from across the room. They might not have all that data in the training data set, right? So it's improving. But the assumption is the customer is static, fixed, has a set of interface reactions, and the AI is learning. But in reality, I am learning too. So when Alexa is not getting me what I want, I change the way I talk to her. And so my question is, when it is an AI and a human, it goes to the whole HCI, human computer interface, and how you design it is a different topic. But how do you do this computational design, or is it something else when you do AIX design for the user to learn at the same time with the AI is trying to learn?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. We in design, we understand that user experience in design is the design. A lot of people say, I am a user experience designer, I design website, but that is not it. You have to consider everything. You have to consider the environment, you have to consider the customer, you have to consider every other external factor that might come in contact with the product. So user experience is actually everything that comes into contact with the product and how you design it. So whether you are an HCI designer, whether you're an interaction designer, you must have to consider these factors and put it into place. So many times, whether it is by accident or by design, I think that interacting with voice interfaces enables you to also learn. I think it's part of the design, but for some, it's kind of an accident. So when you purchase a new television set, you understand, there is a learning process that comes with it. You learn to be able to operate it. You learn to be able to understand the different parts of your car and how to operate it. That is how also the design of it is. So I would say that user experience or designing those kind of intelligent systems, from a design perspective, that is why the AI and the designer needs to work together. Because as a designer, we consider that you don't have to solve every problem. There are some you leave for people to be able to figure out. I think that is the beauty of design. So as you explain your experience with the interaction with Alexa, that process of learning is what helps you to have an emotional attachment to the product. I think think that is pure design. It has nothing to do with computation. You understand? So the computational aspect is also the product. Alexa learning all those nuances that you put in, the silence, the outbursts, or changing of questions. It keeps learning about all those kind of nuances that you put in. It can never be perfect, but as designers, if you start out trying to consider that people will have frustrations, that you have to leave room for people to be able to have doubts and figure things on their own. That is how design actually works, in my opinion, yeah?
So you raised a very good point about how when the customer interacts with the product, that actually creates the attachment, right? That is what we focused on, saying, okay, we initiate the experience with the customer, we assume certain personas and certain behaviors, and all of them are assumptions till our data proves that's what the customer really wants. So the more the customer comes back and keeps engaging, so we measure engagement as a communication metric, that the customer is wanting to use the product continuously. And the more engaged they are, they have that emotional attachment. So you're saying as long as they continue to use Alexa, it could be one engagement metric, right? Time spent kind of metric, then I have that emotional connection. So how do you, I like the way you put it, that it's building that emotional connection, because I've written about Alexa specifically in that context, saying with Alexa, when Alexa got started, right, as a device, right, not the API, and the Echo, right, Alexa Echo device was originally launched, it did not look like it was a product that was thought through about how the experience of the customer is going to be, who's going to be the customer. They put it out saying, here's, we have voice interface, you can put it out for people to talk to the device, right? But what happened was, when Google Home was created, it was created with a lot more product management. So it appeared to me on the receiving end. So it looked like our relation with Alexa, I have both in my house, but the relation that I have with Alexa is different from that of Google Home. In Google Home, I expect it to do what is my expectation, right? When I ask something. With Alexa, I find that because Alexa was the first one, people asked all kinds of, funky questions, or there were a lot of teens who ended up asking jokes. They created the Echo Dot, and, as a separate device, so that you could give a device to your teen to have in the room and have a bunch of them just talk to each other, talk to the device and have fun. And so the whole skills of jokes and, all those funny things, right, ended up adding to the experience of the device, right? So that could be, they did not plan for a teen persona to come and ask jokes. Maybe somebody would ask jokes and they would laugh at it, was a part of the experience. But what I found during that period is, when I ask Alexa something and she does not get my accent, or she assumes I'm asking something else and gives me a different answer, it did not mess with my experience, because my life didn't depend on talking to Alexa. I was amused, right? And I would try not just fix it saying, oh, she doesn't understand my accent. I would just laugh at it, right? Because they're selling it to me. She's supposed to understand me. I'm supposed to have a fun experience with this. So I would ask her something else. I would ask something funky, or I would kind of say, you're stupid. If you say things like that, they actually had programmed for her to respond back and say, that's not nice. I love the fact, because now she's a device sitting in my living room, and I don't want my kids to be talking such language, right? So it was good that she was responding back in a way that became part of the product experience. But we were very forgiving of her not being perfect. And that, you said, is the emotion of our engagement with the product. Because I don't believe that when Amazon built this out and said, hey, I think we have an inference model which understands voice, does natural language processing, can go fetch data from the internet and create an experience of conversation with the customer, we are ready with an AI. They did not think that she's not going to be perfect. They knew the inference model was not going to run at 100% 100% probability of being right. But And they knew that it was a probabilistic product because of being an AI. But the relation of how I became forgiving and it kind of created that bond. Now I treat her like another pet in my house. And that, how do you create that? How do you is it even possible to intentionally create that? Because that's going to be in my car. I go sit in the car. Last week I had a bug and I could not see the questions, and I'm going to come to questions and I'm going to look at YouTube today, guys, in just a minute. And last week, and I could not see the question. What was running in my thought process is I see a lot of people, but I don't see the questions. And so I was like, this is how it's going to be when I sit inside a driverless car. The car is just going to keep driving. I have to assume it's taking me where I'm supposed to go. Yeah. And the experience was scary.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's part accident, it's part by design, but many of those companies, they have really structured design teams that understand how design should flow into people's lives. So they wanted to be able to see that flow of experience into people's lives. So you build that intentionally. It's kind of conversational. It's kind of conversational. On that aspect, that is not to say that there is a lot of back-end computation at the end, where you have the data processing, where you have the streams of data with data being trained as you feed it. But the interaction with the product, how you relate to it, how you feel when you feel that Alexa cannot give you an answer. Many of those things were designed by intention, because they know that even selecting the voice of the Alexa, selecting how the response comes in, how you be able to react to it, all those things are by design. So they design it in such a way that the interaction flows into your life. And if you don't, I think I saw a study that says that if you use a voice assistant in your home and you don't get rid of it after 4 weeks, it's very likely you're never going to get rid of it again, because the emotional attachment, that is where it sets in. So it's like kind of something that is, done inside something like a luxury product. So it's kind of the same thing. So you have that kind of attachment that you're never going to get away from. And that is how they keep on building, they keep on learning, they keep on building, they keep on improving.
That is true of most products. Right? If I buy something and if there is zero engagement, then chances are I'm not going to be using that product, right? I'm not going to get back to it. They miss that window, right? Okay, exactly. I'm going to go to YouTube for a minute and check, because I see a lot of comments. I see Richard. Thank you, Richard. Sorry, I missed you last week. So hope you'll come back and post your question. And I see Toby. Hi, Toby. Dalton. Hello, great to see you all. Yes, great to see you. Dalton is joining us from Brazil. Thank you, Dalton. Okay, Dalton has a question. And he says, is there any data set regarding time spent using the different voice assistants?
Is there any
engagement data? Yeah.
Relating to?
Sorry,
come again.
So since we were talking about voice assistant and engagement as a metric of how the designers are seeing that people are interacting with the device and it's working, the experience is working the way it should be because people are engaging with the device. So Dalton is asking, is there any data? Is there any data set? Because he's interested in actually building the AI. So he's saying, is there any data set on how much time was spent on a device or something? Yeah, I'm guessing he's Dalton, you're looking for some public data set. I'm sure Amazon has this information. Google Home has this. But he's looking for, is there any data set regarding the time spent with the various voice assistants that obviously he could build a model that would create more efficiency in terms of the user experience. So he's not looking to, maybe, would you call this computational design if there is a model that exists, if there is a public data set that exists, and say time spent on Amazon, time spent on Google Home, on Alexa, on the Dot, or various other voice assistants. even, things like that. If there is a data set and he tries to go build a model, would you call that computational design, computation, or is it just creating yet another AI model?
No, it's just creating another AI model. It's not computational design. It's creating another. So that is very much different. So.
Okay. So any public data set that you're aware of that has Amazon, the comparison of multiple voice assistants in terms of engagement?
I'm not aware of that. If it's ever public, but I think it should. I think Amazon and their API page, I think there should be something that has to do with engagement. Many companies have these engagement metrics. Really, they take it really very personal and confidential.
Yeah, I would guess that. I'm sure Google and Amazon, all of them have that. In fact, that is a totally different topic for another day, because they're going to have how much I'm engaged with the device compared to any other customer. That's true with every IoT, right? Everything becomes a digital twin, and they have information about the usage of the customer real time based on personalized. In my case, it's going to be personalized, and then it's going to be location based. They can say, hey, people in San Jose are engaged so much more with Alexa, or I'm sure Amazon has more information about profile of users. Based on that, they can say this household has more this kind of information. Like they can even look at, we were talking about teens asking jokes, and they can say, hey, they're asking a lot more jokes, and looks like there's a teen in the family, and maybe I could start they adapt the recommendation on the engine on the site to start showing merch that teens would buy. I mean, Amazon must be doing, it's very logical to
in terms of the engagement for different other brands apart from the voice assistant, there are other. So I think it should be very much public, because there is one that I saw of Apple Music with Spotify, how people engage on the different platforms. So those kind of metrics of engagement metrics is very, very important to be able to compare how. So it should be somewhere, but I haven't really checked here. So if I get my hands on it, I'll send to Dalton. Dalton, thank you for the questions.
So thank you, Dalton. So Dalton is basically saying what he'll do with this data. We were asking, what is Dalton going to do with this? Is that building another model? So he's saying he'll build data visualization to see where voice assistants are most used.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And he's saying he'll even take it further and say, what are the ranking of the different keywords? So in a future world where maybe there would be, an ad buy on voice assistants, then maybe like AdWords, there would be a cost for different keywords. And Dalton is the one who's going to, have that model that would actually predict what should be the pricing and which keyword is more in demand. And
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's very cool. And Dalton, one thing Charles was saying that for Spotify and the like, you have such data available online. So maybe you should, play with that model. I'm going to go find out for voice assistants if there is anything else. And one of the things I promise folks is we'll find answers and we'll, I'll answer here. If not, I will go find answers. So I'm going to go talk to somebody from Amazon. I had a student who actually worked, who took my IoT course, who was in the Alexa team. So I'm going to go back as my starting point to see that information. The other thing I'm thinking is I had heard of an option where you can go to your Amazon account and you can export your data. And I saw this in the context of an article of somebody saying, hey, we saw, I exported this data and I found out that they're collecting so much data about my interaction with Alexa. So I'm guessing if we each go to our own Amazon account, assuming you have an Echo, Alexa, tied to that login, you should be able to get your own information that they're collecting. Maybe they might not have this specific engagement metric the way you want, but you can infer that from that data. So I would like to go play with that and find that answer. I will come back. And typically what I do is I go back to Driverless World School under Livestream lessons, which is kind of a membership area where I will post the replies back. So if I find answers, this video, as after it's recorded, will sit for anybody to watch. You don't need to do a membership, but it's more, we have conversations and engagement once we have follow-ups from there. So this would be a follow-up that I would post, and hopefully, you'll find that useful, Dalton. And now I see Richard asking a question. So thank you, Richard. Thank you for coming back. So is the voice command on the remote control on my TV I no longer have to think about? Wait, he's asking. No, I missed the first part of the question, Richard. Sorry about that. Okay. Richard says, I tried Google Home for a bit, but my house is not connected. So it was really just a toy. The application that really appeals to me, voice engagement area, is the voice command on the remote control to my TV. I no longer have to think about what channel a show or a game is on. I just tell my TV what I want to watch. I love that. So it's actually listening to the, thank you for that, Richard. So it basically, by asking for a TV show, they are actually mapping to what the channel where the show is. And they're just playing that. So that's cool. Yeah. So that's what the AI is doing. So that's an experience. I don't know if they must have thought about this, right? Because it's automatically doing it. It is baked in the inference model and is giving the experience. So that would be an experience of a computational design, because it's purely data-driven experience. Richard keeps asking for certain keywords, which are names of shows. And now let's go find the channel and make it easier. So it's that what you do in typical product design is reduce the friction so the user doesn't have to come up with the channel. So that's, thank you, Richard. That's a classic example of computational design. I mean, Richard is my student from my IoT class also, and he's brilliant. And he has this way of, he's I think he's an intuitive product person. He works, doing project management, and he has his fun projects as a entrepreneur too. But he has this way of taking anything and flipping and asking a question. So he's given us an example of computational design. So thank you for that, Richard. Dalton is saying, he's asking Richard to hear that you have, is it possible we connect? Okay, good. That's one thing I like about what we do on Wednesdays here is we have people from all around the world. So it's not just me answering your questions. It's not just a topic that I'm teaching, because I do have lessons and stuff that I teach on these topics. But each of you get to connect with other people and you see what people are thinking about. Like now, I can't wait to see Dalton's visualization of what he's doing and what business models evolve from there. And so connect with each other definitely, and something amazing comes out of that.
Yeah.
So Dalton is asking, Dalton is going off on a tangent, but it might be interesting for you. He's talking with Richard and he's saying, what about dim your room lights sounding to the show or game on TV that you're watching? So that's going to be part of the experience if you connect the devices. That brings up actually that gives an interesting perspective on connected devices for me.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? So Richard is happy. It's frictionless on his TV. Computational design is working for him, right, from the TV company. And he says, I want this show, and it plays that show, right? But if he dims the light, I remember when I originally wrote the first IoT disruptions book, there was one of the TV remote, the connected TV devices, where if it hears a phone call, it will dim the sound, it will reduce the volume.
Yeah, I think TiVo did something like that a few years back. I think so. I remember very, very much. It did something like that.
Yeah, but for the light, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe there could be sensors. I have motion sensors on my Nest, so it's possible to see your light setting tied back to your watching experience. It makes logical sense.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if there is I don't know what the sensor standards should be, whether it should be the same with the one on the TV and the one on the smart light. So, but something like that could be possible. There are sensors and they could communicate. So if you on the light, or even if you want a different color of light, like the Philips Hue bulb, to be able to fit in the mood in the house. So if you are watching something like a movie, to be able to dim the lights in the night or something like that. So of course, you don't even need to give the command. I mean, it understands what's happening.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Richard is actually adding a comment to that. They're still chatting with Dalton. He says, I can see a connection between the type of show I'm watching and my interest in different lighting. But I also think my desire to dim is more of a timing thing. So again, sticking with this computational design aspect. So if Richard's behavior of dimming the light. So first, obviously, there's got to be a way of how the TV company would know that the light is being dimmed maybe by talking to the smart connected light. Let's assume that exists, because IoT is about connecting everything to everything, right? So it's not just each device connected to the internet, right? So suppose they have it and they have a way to find out that they're dimming the lights. Now, if it is a timing based thing like it is with Richard, then it becomes a computation. And you can say, we do that with most data, right? Like the time of the day of the week, or we have, adjust for seasonality and things like that. And you have computational design, waiting for computational design, because based on that, you can say, okay, it's 9 o'clock. It could be whatever show, but we know Richard family wants to dim the light, and we can, dim the light to that setting, right? And based on, the weather and where they are, all those factors could play in. They could give that experience. But what if it is very personalized and they dim the light on certain shows or certain times, or it's kind of erratic, right? It's an experience of the user, it's a user's decision, and there could be different personas who might do that. I remember in my family, like my husband would like the lights to be off when we watch something, and I typically don't like it to be so pitch dark, and so we kind of don't agree on that. Obviously it's a different problem of how you design for multiple people who share the same product. But what would you do if it is not computational, if you don't have a ready data that's available and it is AI driven?
Yeah.
Still going to be the old, sorry, let me finish one train of thought, because I'm going back to making personas and designing for them, and assuming that the user is a persona that you've planned for, or you're looking to capture their data to create yet another persona, like we do in design today. Right? Is that going to still hold good when the experience is driven by an AI?
Yeah. I mean, when I said it, I was a reductionist in my explanation. But when you create for a persona, you also have to test that with the real users. So that is where the machine learning starts to come in. So you are testing it with different versions of users, and then you are also scaling that. So over time and across different iterations, I think that the system learns about different inputs. So you have the dependent variable, right? Whether if the light is off, that what you want to achieve is that you have to lower. Okay, if the light is on, it means that the volume is up or something like that. If the light is down, it means that somebody wants like a very relaxed mood. So if you have that as a dependent variable, right? So if there are other constraints that comes in, then the algorithm will be able to compute based on that. So you have different other independent variables that may affect the dependent variable. So anything that comes along is also taken care of. So it might not be automatic. This may need also input from the human. So it says whether if this or anything outside that dependent variable to be able to ask the user. So assuming a kid comes in and decided to turn up the volume of the TV, it will be able to ask you, do you want this still turned up? So that is how the system tries to learn. So if you say yes, it has already been learning about through those iterations to be able to be learning about it. But I don't think that you can ever be able to design for different scenarios for different kinds of people. So
in the case of the kid pulling it for the AI watching this, it's going to be an anomaly in from their behavior.
From the behavior, yes, exactly. It's going to be, but the point is that it's planned for such. You understand? It's planned for such. So if it's a kid, it will now ask you whether you still want this to be like this or not. So I mean that's perfect.
So I want to get to the actual design process, or you said there are all these design systems, right? So is there going to be design systems that are going to be built to make life easier for the designers, or do the designers have to develop some skills? I want to get to that, but I'm seeing a bunch more comments or questions. So Richard is saying, but every night I manually turn on those lights. I like the lights to know when I'm done cooking and turn on automatically. So Richard wants a truly connected home. He wants the smart light to talk to his TV. He obviously wants the lights to know that it is tied back to his cooking. So maybe, a smart range. But also in Richard's comment, I see one thing. He says, I would like the light to know, which means he is willing to communicate with the AI. And I don't know, because he took my IoT class, maybe he's an informed, he is an informed consumer here. But there is, I see a different kind of persona, not what you think the customer interact one way or the other. The persona of a person like Richard, who is willing to teach the AI. Like in the case of Alexa, where I said, I find it amusing when Alexa would not answer the questions the way I expected. I was not upset. I was not frustrated. I just found that experience, as part of the experience, amusing. So there is a persona of users who are willing to cooperate and assume a certain degree of fault and say, I'm going to train the AI. So I see that especially for a designer, right? That is something yet you need to capture of the customer who is reluctant and say, why is this not behaving this way? Or the customer who thinks, am I making a mistake? Yeah. And gets intimidated by working with AI. So I believe I don't know if this is all personas or is going to be something else.
No, I wrote about this. I wrote about this recently. It's user programming. Programming.
It's called user programming.
Yeah, user programming. The idea is that also if you build an inference model, there are also scenarios whereby you allow both the designer and the AI engineer to be able to define a certain logic, whether for content or context or the user data. So the user data that you're contributing in terms of user programming, you are using it to be able also to teach the inference model. So that user programming, it's part of IoT, but it's also very, very important in terms of contributing training data to the inference model. So it's very much allowed.
So when you say user programming, this is the user programming the AI?
Yeah,
so in this case, Richard is the user who's programming the light.
Yes.
To learn why he's switching off. He's switching this off not because there's a time of the day in his family, but also his preference is that he's switched off, he's finished his cooking, now he wants the light to be off. So, it looks like it's a family room and you switch off the cooking and you can just join in and watch, right? So that's what he wants. And he's the user who's programming. That changes the whole experience, the whole concept of engagement. It flips it on its head. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of designers sitting and working with the product team and creating personas and creating experience, and the product being built as an AI. And we were talking about computational design using data. And now you're saying the user is actually programming, which means the user is the one. I mean, essentially the AI, if you talk to engineers, they're going to say, we build the AI. No, right? But now you're saying Richard is building his AI. Richard is contributing data, and that is teaching the AI. Yeah, and he's training the training model without even thinking about it that way.
Yeah, it's a social process. It's very much it's a very important topic in programming. It's a social process. Users actually contribute. So in this case, you are contributing to training the AI. So you are also part of the design team. So in a bigger framework, you are part of the design. So whenever we are creating something and we come across scenarios like this, it's very important to be able to create a path where you let the user to be able to create something and create preferences, create inferences, be able to control the system. So that is user programming. So you're able to contribute. So it's still very much relevant, yeah?
So how is this different from a non-AI product where the user is expected to behave a certain way? We do A/B testing and we find that the user is not behaving the way we want. Maybe it's an aisle design in a Target or a retail store, or it could be, it could be anywhere, any of my current products. It could be my iPhone, right? How is that different from the AI? Let's get to the car. Talk to me in the context of a car that Richard is sitting in the self-driving car, is willing to teach the AI, and he's the user programming the AI to create the personalization of the environment. How is that different from today's personalization product on the web or mobile?
I think that they overlap as a whole. From a design perspective, I don't know what engineers might think about it, but from a design perspective, I think both of them are the same. We see design from a holistic perspective, whereby we believe that both the designer and the user are one and the same. So we are not different. So we work together to be able to create a particular system. So when you are designing this particular system that allows user to make a contribution, you are actually co-designing, you are working with them. So, but the point is that, okay, if you want to teach Alexa, let's say, for example, curse words, for him to be able to know it, the process of doing it, the social process is user programming. You are trying to teach Alexa something that is not already there. So the process of that learning is what we refer to as user programming. So the personalization. So
I'm seeing some comment, and Richard says he doesn't like the word programming. He would want to think of it as teaching. The AI is ready to learn, and Richard is ready to teach. So that is more comfortable as a wording. And Dalton is saying user programming may scare most users. User teaching the device seems cooler. So obviously we've not heard the word
yes.
The word user programming, though it must be used in the design world.
I mean, no, it's not in the design world, it's in IoT. I mean, the moment you are using the Kinect, Microsoft Kinect, you are programming the user. So you are trying to teach how you want to be able to play the game. So the user programming is a term in the academic world that came actually from gaming. So building the gaming systems, that you have to teach the Kinect or the Nintendo Wii how to be able to react in terms of the gestures that you put in. So it's mainly used for gestural interfaces. So user programming gestural interfaces. So interfaces where you have to make a lot of input, gesturally. So so that is the term we use in the academic, and that is what they describe it as. So, but that is I think that programming is a social process. It doesn't involve both, professional programmers or coders or engineers. So anybody can be able to program. When you make your own timetable, you are programming. When you create your own itinerary, you are programming. So that is just what it means. We mustn't be scared of the terms, but we can be able to tone it down so that everybody understands where we're going to. Right?
So I think we need to continue this topic. We barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, seriously, yeah.
Yeah. Would you be able to come back next week and talk to us?
It's very huge. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's interesting. Even if I'm not joining, I'll be listening. So I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. So I see Dalton saying even though the final user is not programming, the device is already programmed. But Dalton, I think the device is being programmed by the user for the next releases. So if it's an AI, it's designed. You could technically say it's programmed by the programmer who's creating the next version of the machine learning algorithm. But
exactly.
Like Richard is feeding training data. In previous weeks, a couple weeks back, right here, we were talking about training the AI. Yeah. And we said, hey, is the product manager role the one who's going to train the AI? And that's how we came to the designer, and we said, is the designer training the AI? Now we've come to the user training the AI. So we've not found our answers to who's really training the AI. So looks like finally everybody's job is going to be about training the AI. This is fascinating, guys and girls. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate this. And we are actually, at the tail end of our hour. So I like to close on time because many people, get back to work and it's late for Europe. But we will continue this topic on this whole AIX design, because I still believe we've not scratched the surface on how is the designer job changing, because I want designers to hear this. And people like you, Charles, have been working with AI. Have you've been working with the creating the experience inside a autonomous vehicle already, right? And you're ahead of the pack. But there must be designers saying, okay, how does this change? Whenever I'm seeing AI everywhere, what does my job role change? What systems and tools are evolving? And what skill set do I need to acquire? Because part of my motivation in everything I do, in content that I share, and topics I teach on Driverless World School and at Stanford, is to prepare people to adapt and develop skills for these new jobs. And we've had this conversation about mobility jobs, how there is going to be a whole bunch of jobs which is involving higher cognition and socio-economic emotional skills. And so I'm hearing how the design job is changing in a computational sense. You could but you could say the higher cognition part.
Yeah.
But also there is something more here that's and I'm still not, I'm kind of trying to grasp how is it changing. So maybe those of us who are asking questions who are not designers, or I'm going back to my past of working with designers in an e-commerce setting. I'm trying to make a translation, and I'm trying to see what is different in the pure world of AI. And Richard brought this thing of how there are multiple devices going to talk to each other when where the human is not needed. Think of a blockchain system, and decisions are made between devices. And how is the designer building for that a connected experience? So we should, looks like we will end up building a new course, Charles, the way we are going with this topic. I see a potential for that. We'll talk offline.
Definitely, I think that the designer role is changing towards a different thing. That system, that is where we will be able to discuss again. So it will be interesting to see, but it's changing. So people are changing from designing interfaces to whole systems and their experiences. So it's interesting. Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to wrap up. So I hope I've answered all the questions. Thank you everybody for joining me. I see David. Hi, David. He's saying bye. David Kerrigan is joining us from Ireland. Thank you so much. This was fun. I missed you guys, and I missed the questions. So I'm so happy to see that this time. And this will be archived and stay on Driverless World School under Livestream lessons, because I usually move them away from my YouTube, because I have the interviews. I have too much content on YouTube. So the way I organize is this Livestream lessons is full of our conversation on Wednesdays, the live Q&A on Wednesday. Try to organize it by different topics and do some editing so you know what you're looking for. And it's not just group of conversation, so you can go by topic and look for what you want to learn. But if you're watching this, I would like to hear from designers, people who are product managers working with designers, designing AI. And if somebody else is training the AI, I need to talk to you. So ping me on driverlessworldschool.com or on LinkedIn. And I hopefully you would have talked to a couple more designers, and we'll continue the conversation next week. And we'll get to how the design jobs are changing with AI, and specifically focus more on the car. I want to see how much of this applies to the car, how much of this applies to a connected smart mobility ecosystem where the car talks to retailers as it's driving around, or the car talks to the traffic lights and to transportation systems. And all of them are AI. And it's similar to the experience that Richard got us thinking about the smart home where there are different connected devices. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you, everybody. And you can come back to YouTube, because now I put the embed on YouTube and it just pops up. Now when I switch it off, and it's going to go away, you won't see the live setting, but each week it's going to come back. And so subscribe to my YouTube, or tell your friends to come to my YouTube, and the live session, you should be able to connect easily, and then give me feedback. Hopefully, finding this straight from my YouTube work for you. So thank you, everybody. With that, I'm going to wrap up, and I'm going to stop my live.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sudha.
Thank you.